waking up and grabbing our insert iPhone joke here. We then cop some drip and climb up a small wall, to which we are then met with one of the most memorable landscapes in all of gaming. And here you might ask, what now? Well, there's clearly some old Brexit geezer that you're supposed to talk to, but even now, only a minute into the game, you're already free to do what you like. While still confined to the elevated island of the Great Plateau, you have complete freedom to explore your surroundings, gather equipment, take down enemy camps, and check out some of the amazing world-based storytelling the game already has to offer. Now, take into consideration once again that this has all happened within just a minute of gameplay. Let's compare this to another game in the genre known for its freedom, Skyrim. This game's opening has become a meme because of how nauseatingly long it is, quite often putting you on a strict path and being told what to do by NPCs. Now, this isn't at all to say that Skyrim's way is bad either. Giving someone a safe space to figure out the core concepts of your game is a good way to make sure you don't confuse the player later on, but Breath of the Wild doesn't feel a need to hold your hand in quite the same way. This freedom also extends to the game's combat, which does everything it can to promote creativity with how you go about attacking. For instance, let's take the situation with an enemy camp here. Sure, if you're skilled enough, you could probably just run in, guns blazing, and manage to take out all the enemies inside, claim the treasure, and feel like a badass. But let's say you haven't played this game 10 times already. What can you do? Well, if you're smart about it, then you can kill the lookout before he's able to alert his friends, and then use that space to cause an explosion that immediately wipes out almost the entire enemy camp, allowing you to pick the stragglers off with ease. This kind of combat is seen all throughout the game. Do you want to fight these guys head on? Use the boulders nearby to kill them without getting your hands dirty? Maybe even cause a distraction so that you can sneak kill them both. Hell, maybe there's a thunderstorm going on right now. Why don't you try grabbing a metal weapon and holding it near them to act as a lightning rod? Or maybe you could do whatever the fuck is going on there. My point here is that Breath of the Wild is unrivaled in terms of its ability to give the player so many different ways to handle an encounter, and letting their creativity run wild. And this is without even mentioning the various different kinds of weapons the game has that it forces you to swap between thanks to the game's durability system. Being able to learn simply by playing with all the toys the game has given me really does help to bring out that adventurous and explorer part of me that in recent times has been buried by all of the multiplayer shooters that flood in the market. But how were they able to make a game with this much freedom? Well, immediately following the launch of Skyward Sword in 2011, a small group of developers at Nintendo would start their work on some prototypes for the next installment in the Legend of Zelda franchise. Using the other Zelda game that was in development at the time, A Link Between Worlds, as a testing ground, the team knew very quickly that they wanted to reinvent the way the Zelda franchise was played. With a bunch of new faces on the development team, break the conventions of Zelda quickly became a common motto for the team during their time experimenting with the game mechanics. This would lead them to start experimenting more and more with trying to give the player as much freedom as possible, testing any concepts in a 2D version of the game that was made exclusively to give the team a better idea of what would fit within the world they were creating. Work would silently continue on the game all the way up until June of 2014, where the game would be officially announced, and people were hyped. Promising a fully fledged open world for the first time since the original Zelda back on the NES, people instantly recognized how different this game would be to all that came before it. With a beautiful art style, tons of mysterious props, and a Link in a suit different to his typical green tunic, the fans were left with lots to speculate on, and added on more so by the metallic enemy chasing Link that would later be known as a Guardian. Planning to release the next year in 2015 for the still fairly new Wii U, the hype was running and the theories were rampant. And as fans waited for the 2015 release date, they would only end up disappointed when the game was delayed to late 2016 because of problems the developers were having with the physics engine. And so the fans were once again simply left to wait another year for the game's new release date. But Nintendo wasn't done, once again delaying the game till mid-2017, as by this point it had become clear that their new console, the Switch, was just on the horizon, and not porting the game to it could see either the game or the Switch itself lose out on sales. But by the end of all the waiting, it was all worth it, as on March 3rd of 2017, the game would explode onto the market. Being a launch title for the Switch gave Breath of the Wild an audience that it otherwise wouldn't have had. And my god did it wow that audience. Getting almost perfect scores from every reviewer out there, Breath of the Wild was and still is heralded as one of the most brilliant games of our generation. And now that we're all caught up, I say we pop the game back open and see what the story has for us. Getting back to it, we talk to the old man who gives us some history on the ruined chapel behind him, which returning fans will instantly get a boner to, as it's actually the Temple of Time making a return from Ocarina. Moving on though, we find ourselves a wireless charging station and erect some 5G towers. After climbing down, we're then told by the old man that if we get him the treasure from a nearby shrine that just activated, then he'll give us his paraglider, letting us leave the Great Plateau and journey the rest of Hyrule. Heading into the shrine, we're prompted to put our Sheikah Slate into a nearby pedestal, and when we do it, it's given fucking superpowers. After completing the shrine and being handed some old man's balls, we show them to the other old man, only to be told that it's not good enough, and that we'll need to go get 3 more from around the island. Each shrine introducing a new power, those being Stasis, Magnesis, Cryonis, and that one thing the Quiet Kid is a little too happy to share his recipe for. Exiting the last shrine, we're then told by the old man to meet him at the temple before fading away, and when arriving, he reveals himself to be the long-dead king of Hyrule. From here, everything is explained. It's been well known for countless years that Link, Zelda, and Ganon are in a perpetual loop of reincarnation. This led the kingdom to start preparations for when Ganon would next attack, finding ancient technologies called Guardians and Divine Beasts to help. Guardians acting as autonomous foot soldiers, and the Divine Beasts as hard-hitting powerhouses, all meant to help Link and Zelda. Finding the most talented people they could to pilot the Divine Beasts, and finding the reincarnated version of Link, everyone in Hyrule was sure that if Ganon showed his face, they'd have it under control. But what they didn't expect was the army they'd raised from the ground would be taken over, infected, and turned against Hyrule. In only a few moments, an easy victory turned into certain defeat. And with Link staring down an entire army of super weapons with no reinforcements, he would die protecting Zelda. But Zelda would have Link taken to the Shrine of Resurrection, before going to use her powers to hold Ganon in the castle for the next 100 years. You are now the very last wildcard up the sleeve of an entire kingdom.